So we're going to be talking about heaven and hell, and go, okay, do we have the right view of these places? Are they real places? Right? Let's dig into this stuff here. Let's pray over this lesson here right now. Father, we come to you, come to your word with open minds, open hearts. Lord, teach us. May it be your words, not mine. And may you speak today. In Jesus' name. All right. Amen. Amen. All right. So chapter 16, verse 19, we'll go through the end. So just just a few verses, 12 verses. Jesus tells this story. Some would say it's a parable. I would push back on that because there are actual names of people in this. If it is a parable, it's the only one that they use the actual names like Abraham and Lazarus and that type of thing. So it would be strange to me to think that it is a parable. But I think regardless of whether it is or not, again, I think it's actually happened, but it's meant to illustrate a very real topic, which is heaven and hell. That is a very real topic. That is a very biblical topic. Jesus taught much on the concept of hell, a little less so on the concept of heaven, but both are very amply talked about here, and we're going to be borrowing from other verses and stuff like that. And one of the reasons I wanted you to have those note sheets, or if you've got notes you can take on your phone, because I'm going to be throwing verses at you for you to read on your own that kind of are backing what I'm saying here. And I encourage you guys, by the way, always to fact check me, man. Like, dig into your word, and if you want to make sure that we're discerning, that you don't just take what I say at face value, which you can. I study, and I mean to lead you well and shepherd you well, but it's good for you to have a habit of testing all things. The book of Acts talks about the Bereans who Paul would teach. This is Paul, and they'd go home and they'd study the word, and they go, okay, yeah, checks out. Okay, checks out. Do that. Be Bereans. Those are the Bereans. Anyway, from Berea. Anyway, all right, heaven and hell. Going through the first few verses here, verses 19 through 22. There was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. Rich dude. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with just the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs would come and lick his sores. So it was that the beggar died, and he was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And he went to Hades. We'll cover that in the next verse. So we have character number one. We'll pause there for just a second. We have character number one, who's the rich man. And the rich man had no lack of life, man. He had everything he wanted. It says he lived sumptuously, right? So he did not have a need that did not go satisfied. Everything was he had an abundance, right? He did not go without. With that though, he had no need for God. That's what we see here. He had everything in life, but he didn't have God, right? And so that's character number one. Character number two was we have this Lazarus. And Lazarus was a poor man who suffered in life, but he had God, right? And that was everything, right? The rich man had everything from a worldly standard, but he really had what? Nothing. And Lazarus, who lacked everything and had no worldly possession, had everything because he had God. Let that be a lesson to you, Christian. And they both died, so that happened. And I just want to pause on that note real quick, that everybody is going to pass that way. All of us. None of us get out of this alive. It's like you have a 100% chance of dying. It's 100%, right? 10 out of 10. So it's wise then to give some thoughts as to where you will spend eternity. That would only make sense. It would be a foolish thing to do, to go, I don't even want to think about it. It'll be fine. I'm a good person. You know how many people I've talked to and I say, hey, if you were to die today, you think you go to heaven or hell? Most people would say a combination of one or two things. I don't know. Or, well, heaven, I hope. We should know, man. We should dial that in. We should give it maybe a little more thought. Like, it's kind of a big deal. It's a big deal for these two guys, right? The rich man and Lazarus. So it's wise to give some thought as to where you will spend eternity. Like I said, there's a 100% chance you're going to die. Probably a good idea to make good use of your time as well here on earth. And make sure that you're right with God. And that you'll go to a place that you want to go to. Kind of a big deal. Okay? Let's continue in this story. All right. Two dudes, different walks of life. Both are dead. Went to different places. One is called Abraham's bosom. We'll cover that in just a little bit, so bear with me there. We'll call it heaven, for lack of a better way of saying it. And then you have the rich man who's in hell, and we'll cover that right now. Being in torment in Hades, he, the rich man, lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Okay? So the area that Lazarus was with Abraham, and it's a good place, right? We'll cover that in a second. And you've got this, the rich guy's in torment, it said, right? He's being in torment in Hades. He lifted up his eyes. He saw Abraham afar off, Lazarus in his bosom, verse 24. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus. Interesting. Send Lazarus that he might dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things. Likewise, Lazarus, he received evil things, but now he is comforted, you are tormented. And besides this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. So let's unpack this a little bit. Lazarus was taken to a place referred to as Abraham's bosom, or perhaps that was the place of paradise that the thief on the cross, where Jesus referenced that. Remember, at this point in the narrative of Luke, there has not been a full forgiveness of sin, right? You had animal sacrifices and the blood of animals. It was the right thing that God instituted, right? It was meant to cover sin, but it never took sin away. Jesus became the perfect sacrifice. All those sacrifices pointed to the need for sacrifice. Jesus shows up and is like, I'm willing to pay as the perfect sacrifice. The one and only, the first and the last, God in human flesh, perfect, no sin in him, became sin for us, that if we would trust in him and believe in him, then we can have forgiveness of sins. That hasn't happened yet because Jesus is telling this story. He's still alive and well. So when he's telling this story, he's talking about Abraham's bosom. He's talking about this Hades as well. And so this particular place is where people would go pre-Jesus, right? But it's called paradise. Jesus even leaned over when he's on the cross. And he talks to the thief and he says, the thief said to him, "Hey, remember me in your kingdom." Jesus says, "I'll see you in paradise today." It's that same thief that was like, "Hey, stop! He didn't do anything wrong." He had this little moment of faith, which is, praise the Lord. The rich man, however, was in Hades. Now, by the way, I realize you guys are going to have questions. Text them in. Totally cool, right? There's a lot to unpack here, especially if you're like me and you're a skeptic. Remember, I came to Christ as a skeptic. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That was my motto. Yeah, right. You dig in. When you pursue truth, it'll check out, man. It'll check out. Rich man, however, was in Hades, right? Specifically, what we would call hell. Okay, Hades is a Greek word. Okay, hell is a word that we use. In this rich man, in verse 23, in 24, we see that he's being tormented, right? He's obviously thirsty, right? He wants water. He's thirsty. He's saying, I'm being tormented. And he says in this flame, right? So there's fire, going back to your point. He's being tormented. He's thirsty. He's hot. He could see where he wanted to be. Imagine that, being in that place. Maybe you thought you were going to go to the good place. And you're like, what? Oh, I want to go over there. And then, no, I'm sorry, you had your chance. You're not in that life anymore. That was your chance. That was your chance. And you're reflecting all the times that someone shared the gospel with you. Oof, man. So this rich man sees that, though, and he sees it far off. He's crawling out. He's hopeful. Like, please, it's something, even just a drop on my tongue to quench this. I remember talking with somebody. This happens a few times, and someone's like, I don't want to go to heaven, man. Heaven? That's no fun. That's boring. I'm going to go with my boys that we're going to party it up in hell. We're going to do whatever. We're going to be drinking. We're going to be partying. No. Nope. The things you think are fun in this world, they don't get. That's not what happens there. It's suffering. It's meant to be a place of judgment and torment. That's what we're seeing here. He's in torment, and he longed to be. He was the partier. He was the rich dude that had sumptuous life. It means he's a partier. He did banquets and hanging out and friends and woo, yeah. No cares, There's no partying in hell. And he says there's no way to, by the way, there's no purgatory. Right? He's like, there's no way to get from hell, from where you are. Verse 26 says that, right? He's like, there's a great gulf fixed. No one can come from us to you and you to us. There's no purgatory. Purgatory is not a thing. That's something that was manufactured by the Roman Catholic Church. There's no way to get from hell to heaven or vice versa. There's no purgatory. There's no way to lose heaven, by the way. If you're in heaven, you're not going to get, I screwed up in heaven. What? And you can't do enough good while you're in hell to all of a sudden be exempt. That's just not the way it works, right? That's what this is talking about. And really, this comes down, this is very basic, guys. Eternity is spent in one of two places. I've said this before, we've got this little sliver of time. Just imagine that rope of time stretching off into the distance beyond sight, right? And this is our life. Bink, just this little bit. That's all we have. Just a few years. Some of us more than others, right? We just got this little bit. And we scramble and we strive in this little bit of time, and we build memories, we have relationships and all these different things in just that little bit of time. But really, it's eternity that we should give some honest thought to, right? Because that's where we're going to be for a very long time, using our words. Bible calls it eternity future, right? So eternity is spent in one of two places. You better get it right. One of two places. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 says this, many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Everlasting life, everlasting contempt. Everybody's going to go somewhere, smoking or none. Verse 27. Still the rich man talking. Then he said, I beg you therefore, Father, talking to Abraham, that you would send him, Lazarus, to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. What's he saying? It's like, I don't want my family to come here. Will you send Lazarus to go tell my family and warn them? Abraham said to him, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. And he said, no, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, then they'll repent. Like if Lazarus raises from the grave and he goes and appears to then they'll believe. Verse 31, Abraham said to him, if they don't hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded though one rise from the dead. So the rich man didn't want his family to suffer. he's there, and he's reflecting. He's like, oh my gosh, not only did I not know, I didn't lead my family in a way that they would know. And he's just, just the torment. There's that kind of torment too. Just the mental, emotional torment of what you could have done, should have done, ought to have done, and I didn't do this right. Just that torment forever. Just missed opportunities. So apparently his family was unbelievers too, right? You wouldn't send them to somebody that's not a believer. So his whole family is a whole bunch of non-believers. But the thing is his opportunity had expired. That's it. Again, that's all we get. Make it count. Make it count. You've got 1 year, 100 years, a week. You have this afternoon. I don't know. But we need to make it count. I do know that. This rich man is pleading. And so what does Abraham say? He says, hey, your family has Moses and the prophets. He's talking about the law. He's like, they have the law. Like, they have the word of God. Moses wrote, of course, the first 5 books of the Bible, right? He penned them anyway, and the prophets was the next section of Scripture. So it's like the law and the prophets. They have the law and the prophets. Like, that's what they've got. Like, they've got their tools. They have everything they need to know that there's a heaven and a hell and how to get to here. Here being Abraham's bosom, paradise. And then the rich man pleads a little bit more. He's like, well, just come on. Like, can't you just give him a pass real quick and just ask God, you're kind of Abraham, you're kind of in with God. Can't you just have like a Lazarus just kind of pop up, and then go say, hi, family, I came here from, rich man Joe. And, he says, don't, you need to change your life because he's in a bad place. And what does Abraham say? He's like, look, even a miraculous sign of a raised person won't convince someone who has a hard heart. That's what he says. If they don't hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded though one rise from the dead. How many people, you've probably talked to them too, but like when someone said, hey, well, if God's real, then he can show me. Why doesn't he show it? Why doesn't he prove it? If he proves himself to me, then I'll believe. And there's different varying of that argument, right? Variations of it. And then God does something, maybe not, I don't know. And then, I don't know if that's the way it happened. It could have been. It has to do with a hard heart. If someone's hardened, this is what Abraham's saying. He's like, hey, if they're hardened towards the word of God, they don't want truth, then it doesn't matter all the other stuff. God could part the sky and talk to them. They've got a hard heart. That's why it's always a good question when you're evangelizing with people, when you're doing some apologetics and you're talking to somebody, you say, well, we'll just pause for just a second. If Christianity were true, let's just say for sake of argument, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? No. Oh, well, then it doesn't matter if I prove it to you. It doesn't matter if I show you how the Bible is inerrant. It doesn't matter if I show how it's historically accurate. It doesn't matter how I share my testimony, how God showed up in many different ways. It doesn't matter how I talk about fulfilled prophecy in Scripture. It doesn't matter to you then. If it's true, you won't do it. That's really kind of what Abraham's saying here. That's why our heart is so important, church. Because when we get that hard heart, we resist truth. And if you have a hard heart in here today, it's a dangerous place because you are resistant to things. You've put people at arm's distance. You've put truth away from you. You're hardened to those things. This is hard truth for this rich man to receive, right? He's like, look, no, and no. No, you can't come here. No, we're not going to send somebody else. No, we're not going to do a miracle for your family. It's done. That time frame that you had is gone. It's gone. It's done. And Church, if this doesn't ring true, if that doesn't stand out to you, redeem the time, I don't know what it will. Going one of two places, man. Redeem the time. You just don't know. There's a sense of urgency there, right? There's just an absolute sense of urgency. I think I've got these here. Oh, geez, that's small, huh? Can you guys read that? Michaela's squinting. Which makes you worry about the fact that you drive. We're going to unpack a few things here because we're going to talk about heaven and hell. Okay? We're going to talk about what the Bible has to say about these places. We already have a little bit, right? So there's different terms, though, throughout Scripture that refer to hell. And so let's unpack this a little bit. Again, if you've got questions, text them in. That's probably the best way. So hell is a specific place of suffering. It has to do with sin. Sin is what separates us from God. God is holy. Heaven is perfect, right? And sin, we all fall short. We all need a Savior. So hell is a specific place of suffering. Presently, what we would call within Hades, a place called Hades. That's what's talked about here, right? One day, this will be emptied into what's called the everlasting lake of fire. That's found in Revelation chapter 20, verses 13 and 14. So that actually says that hell will empty up its dead and be emptied into the everlasting lake of fire. Okay, it's effectively the same thing. It's a place of suffering and torment and for eternity. Think of hell as like current as we would currently refer to hell. It's like jail waiting for your sentencing for prison. I think that kind of helps to ring true with that, right? Originally, hell, by the way, if you can see that up there, it was created for fallen angels until the day of judgment. That's from 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. Another Greek word called Tartarus. Paul uses Peter uses it there in 2 Peter 2:4, Tartarus, right? And so this is Greek mythology now. I'm stepping aside here. Greek mythology, that's where in Greek mythology they would lock it was a prison in Hades. That's what it's talking about. They would lock their enemies there. That's fiction in that sense. But it is real that angels are there now. There are fallen angels that are in chains. That's what 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 says. And that's what hell was created for. God didn't want any humans to go to hell. He doesn't want anybody to go there. He is not willing that any would perish, but that all would come to repentance and everlasting life. That's the heart of God. Why would God send people to hell? He doesn't. God doesn't send people to hell. Matter of fact, he paved a way at his own peril for everyone to come to heaven with him, right? So originally, again, it was created for fallen angels until the day of judgment. There's also these things in Revelation 20, verse 12, talks about the books. As the books are open. What I'm talking about, there's a day of judgment. Okay, there's a day of judgment coming where books are opened. And if you don't have Jesus, all the things that you've done, that you messed up, all the words you said that were hurtful, the lies you shared, the things you did, the things you thought, the wrong feelings you had, the wrong thoughts you had are recorded in these books. And you're going to be judged on what you did. And these books are going to be open, and you're going to be before the throne of God, and you're going to have, not you, but a person has to give an account. What do you have to say about these things? Yeah, I'm guilty. Do you have any defense? I don't. Okay, then your sentencing is depart. Now, we have a defense. We have a Savior. And those records get burned. And we'll talk about a different book that we're written in. So, this is the judgment place to go to hell, just to be clear. these books, it talks about it's the deeds of all the non-believers who will be judged. That's found in Revelation chapter 20, verse 12. I was going to put all these verses on here, but it would take so long. Just if we need to do other conversations after this, totally can. But just that's why I jot this stuff down. Maybe take a picture of the screen. Hell also has degrees. Seems to say that it has degrees or levels of punishment based on what someone does or doesn't do in their life. You can read Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 22, Luke 12, verses 45 to 48, meaning that the sentencing fits the crimes, right? I mean, we kind of get that. Not everybody's sentenced the same way in our world. Same with God, right? It talks about hell being a place of fire and torment. That's Mark chapter 9:43 and Luke 16:24, a place of fire and torment. Every time hell is mentioned in the Bible, it always says down or beneath, right? So it's just kind of interesting. I just threw that up there. There's so many verses that talk about that. That's too many to even put down. But Isaiah 14:9 and Ezekiel 31 there, you can see that I mentioned. So I'm just kind of giving you some just general things, what the Bible talks about hell, how it refers to it, how it refers to getting there. It's people that die in their sins. In short, it's a place of suffering that people go because they died in their sins. They have no payment for their sin. The sins are the just punishment on the crime still needs to be paid. And if you think about it, let's pretend that you had a family member who was radically abused and beaten to the brink of death, and you found the perpetrator, you found him, and they went before the judge, and the judge goes, no, you can go. What do you mean? He caught red-handed. We have the video. It's clear. He's admitted he's guilty. Can't let him go. He needs to be punished, and you would not rest until, right? It's the same type of thing. God, there has to be judgment, punishment, and justice. There's a cry for justice, right, on the wrong. We have that too as a Christian. It's just that God punished his son in our place. He took the hit. He did the time for us, you could say, using that analogy. Another word that's translated hell in the Bible is called Sheol. Okay, so there's Hades, hell, Sheol. Bear with me here, okay? When you look up the word in the original language, it might be Sheol, okay? It might be Hades. Hades is the Greek word. Sheol is the Hebrew word. They're the same. They're actually interchangeable. This means place of the dead. The grave. Sometimes it's translated the grave, right? This is the place of the dead. Hell is also referred to as outer darkness. We're kind of descriptive here, right? Outer darkness. Sounds alone, doesn't it? You're just alone. Relationships. Relationships are what this world's about, right? When you start to have relationship issues, that's like when your world falls apart. I just picture outer darkness, just places of suffering, right? Those are the verses. I won't keep quoting them out. You can see them on the screen there. It also talks about there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. So there's sorrow. There's great sorrow, weeping, crying, tears. Why? Regret, pain, suffering. Gnashing of teeth is, you're emotional, physical pain. You're just gritting your teeth, because it hurts so bad. Everywhere hurts, physically, emotionally, relationally, mentally. Hell is also referred to as Gehenna, which is a literal place there, Valley of Hinnom. Over the years, that's an actual physical place. So Jesus referenced this before. He's like, oh yeah, like Gehenna. And so it's where he says where worm does not die, and I forget the rest of it. So over the years, many atrocities in the Valley of Hinnom have been committed. This is where the Valley of Hinnom is where they built altars to Molech, and that's a big stone statue to this fake god, this false god, and he would have his hands out and like a bin there, and like they would heat up the hands with coals, so like flaming red hot, and they would put their newborns in the hands as an offering to this god in worship of him. So it was child sacrifices that were happening there. Horrible over the years. And so and then in Jesus's day specifically, it became a garbage dump. And so they would just burn trash there. And so Jesus kind of uses it as a parallel, saying like, hell is like that. Just a big pile of burning, grossy junk. No one wants to go there. The worm just never dies. The Bible also calls hell the bottom, refers to it as the bottomless pit. Most pits have a bottom, just before, right? It's kind of like what makes it a pit. So when it kind of begs the question, how could it be bottomless? Perhaps just throwing it out there. This is opinion, okay? Is it in the center of the earth? If it's in the center of the earth, there is no bottom technically. But anyway, bottomless pit is what it calls it. Maybe it's descriptive. Or it references it as the pit. So that's another words that we're referring to hell. Those are the verses that talk about it. The pit and the bottomless pit are used many times in Scripture. And then the last thing that talks about hell is the lake of fire, or the everlasting lake of fire. And that's the final resting place for all non-believers. Spoken of in Revelation 20, verses 13 to 14, as one of the places. And again, that's the finality of it. You could say like the hell as we know it is kind of like a holding tank for the final day of judgment, when everybody gets judged and those books get opened. And if you don't have a Savior, you're guilty in your sins. The punishment is due by you and you alone, and you will be sentenced to hell. And as we read today, there is no getting out of it. There's no purgatory. There's no bunch of good works. It's not like you have community service to get out of it. You are punished for eternity. Fun stuff, right, guys? It's pretty awesome. That's why I started with hell, because I wanted to end with heaven. Before we move on, any questions? Was that a hand? Oh. Thank you. That's a good point. Yeah, there was no argument. There's no like, hey, whoa, I don't deserve this. I never knew. Because what is the Bible also talks about, and I should have put that verse on there. At the name of Jesus, every tongue will confess, every knee will bow. So at the judgment, the books get opened. There's no denying it. It's like, you did this, you said these things, you thought those things, you felt those things. That was what you did. That was what was in your heart. What do you have to say? Guilty. There's no arguing. There's no pleading for that. And it's like, okay, this is King Jesus. I know. Bow. You are Lord. Depart from me. Whew, right? I mean, yeah. And there's no argument. Like, that's it. You're done. And there's going to be some, that one of the scariest verses in the Bible, well, we cast out demons in your name. Well, we sat through Bible studies. We prophesied in your name. Jesus? He goes, I never knew you. I never knew you. Depart from me. It's about knowing him. It's about the relationship. It's about that. I really want to take the questions for the sake of time. Yeah. Yeah, are there levels of punishment? Like, again, we could go and read, I think it's Deuteronomy, right? 32:22 talks about the lowest part of hell. So it's all suffering. It's all suffering. So don't, yeah. But it's a degree of, when we sentence people, the punishment fits the crime, right? So maybe that's kind of how I get around it, That particular point there, like I said, when I articulate it, it seems to point to the fact that there are different levels. I could be wrong on that, just to be clear. That's fun to admit, right, from the pulpit, but but from a conceptual standpoint, we can look at how we run our court system. It's like the punishment fits the crime. Like not everybody gets the death penalty. Any other questions? You can keep them coming in too. Okay, go. I want to get the questions out first. Say that again. Why? Why do you think that would happen? Why would God mention hell more than heaven? We're pain motivated. How many times does it take something for you to, how many kick in the butts do you need to get doing what you know you should have been doing in the first place? Right? It's like, there's pretty much, I'm just going to venture to say, pretty much what I'm talking about so far, you already knew. Pretty much. Like the big concept, right? Like you know your life is going to end one day. We live like it doesn't, but you know it's going to. Right? And you know you're going to one of two places, right? And you know how to get to one versus the other. But it's like sometimes we just need that kick in the butt. You know, that doctor that brings you in, he says, hey, you know what? If you don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to have we're going to need to do surgery. Oh, and then you do it. But you knew you should have been working out the whole time. Right? Why did it take that? Because we're motivated by pain. The other reason, I think somebody else was going to say it. Yeah. You don't need to be warned about a reward, yeah. I think so God is trying to warn us, saying, remember, God is willing that none should perish, but that all would come to repentance and everlasting life. God wants the entire world to come to saving grace. That doesn't happen, though, right? But that's his heart. His heart is for you. His heart to the point where he's willing to take the hit for you so that you can come and spend eternity with him and you don't go there. He's like, I made that for the angels because they rebelled against me and I put some in chains in there for the judgment. I don't want you to go there. I will do everything I can. And so that's all thanks, Michaela, for bringing that up, is that there's so many points of just mentioning of that. He's like, be aware, warning. It's like, you know, when you read stuff, there's like warning labels on everything, right? It's kind of like God's doing that on us. It's like, hey. Yeah, Rena. It's there. It's there, right? All right.
So we put all the angels in chains.
Not all.
Against him. I was going to say,
Some.
Is that the demons that are coming after us are the ones who didn't get put in chains?
Correct. You have to ask God that question. Any question of why God, it's really speculation, right? But we can learn God's heart. So the question is like, hey, are all the angels in chains in hell? The fallen angels. Are all the fallen angels in hell? No. It's select ones that are reserved for the day of judgment. So can you imagine then? That means that God said, hey, some of these other demons, I'm going to still use them. I have a plan for them. Now, God doesn't cause evil. He doesn't do that. But sometimes the evil stuff wakes us up to things. And you have an experience. I've had demonic attacks on me, right? Like where I know it was demonic, right? I think I've shared a few months ago about that, right? And so it wakes you up. And God used the evil thing for good, right? Romans 8:28, God uses all things for good, even the bad junk stuff, even Satan himself he uses for good, right? And so all that to say is that's why he keeps probably some of them around, you know, or lets them do that. But now the angels that are in chains for judgment, that means, what are these guys? What are these beasties capable of? Well, read the book of Revelation. You see some wild stuff happening because I think that's when they get chink, let loose, and it is ugly. We're talking cataclysmic, worldwide carnage. But you keep reading, God wins. So, and I'm playing for the winning team. So I hope you are too. I hope every single person in this room is playing on the winning team. Let's move into something a little more lighter, a little literally lighter, and hopeful. Can we do that? Okay, heaven. This will be a little bit shorter because it's, I think, simpler. But we've read a little bit about Abraham's bosom. We talked about that. That was Luke chapter 16, verse 23. My opinion is that this was emptied after Jesus rose. Again, once Jesus died on the cross, he rose from the grave. Now sin is cast away. By the way, those books that had all the words written on it, all the wrongs that you've done, all those books that are on file, they get burned. They get destroyed. It's as though you never did those things, thought those things, felt those things. Isn't that great? Gone. No record. It's like, I'm sorry, there's no record of it. And Jesus comes in and goes, that's on my account. I took care of that. I took care of that. Yes, it was wrong. Done. Paid for. Right? So once the sins are able to be taken away, so far as the east is from the west, he has removed our transgressions from us, right? They're gone. Then Abraham's, what we refer to here as Abraham's bosom, that's that people are able to be right there with heaven in the dwelling place of God. Paul talks about paradise, by the way, in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 3 through 4. The thief on the cross, Jesus mentions paradise. The thief on the cross there, Luke 23:43. And so when Paul says I was caught up to paradise, he's like it was the third heaven, is what he says. Did you guys notice? Have you guys heard this before? If you read the verses, feel free to look them up. Paul talks about this in 2 Corinthians. He says, I was caught up into the third heaven. I was in paradise. Okay? And so what is this third heaven? So the first heaven, what we would call it, is like the sky and atmosphere. It's where the birds fly. Okay? It's where planes fly. That's the heaven. That's heaven, what the Bible calls heaven. It's the first heaven. Genesis 6:7, James 5:18 talks about that. And then there's the heavens. God, you've stretched out your hand and made the heavens. We're talking about sun, moon, stars, planets, galaxies, outer space, right? That's the second heaven. Okay? And then Paul is being distinct. He's saying, I was caught up to the third heaven. Well, what is that? That is the dwelling place of God. It's where God's throne is. Okay, as evidenced by those verses. Revelation 4 is a powerful example of the throne room of God. Epic. It's pretty cool. On that note, too, Paul talks about heaven and his heaven experience. So most likely Paul was one of the times when Paul was beaten to death. Remember, he was beaten to death and left for dead. He went in, he's sharing Christ, and then they said, we hate your message so much. Paul, shut up. If you don't shut your mouth and stop talking about this Jesus guy, and they grabbed a stone. And he kept talking, and he kept talking, and they started throwing. And he went down, and he kept talking, and they kept throwing, to the point where they're like, okay, good, he's dead. He's a blasphemer anyway, because we know that Jesus is not the Messiah. And they drug him out of the city and just tossed him aside. Fun fact, for there's people that say like, oh yeah, Bible's not true. People are willing to die for this. All of the apostles paid with their life. Tens and hundreds of thousands of people have been martyred. Over the millions at this point have been martyred for their faith in Jesus Christ. That aside, Paul's tossed outside. It's probably then that he got this vision that he talks about. It's probably then. He had an out-of-body, near-death experience. Paul had a near-death experience. And he says, I was caught up in the heaven. He goes, I don't know if it was physically or just a vision, and it was paradise, and the God was there. He goes, and he says this one little thing. He says, it's not lawful for me to even utter what I was hearing there. He's like, it would be a crime for me to try to use earthly words to describe what I saw and heard. It would be unlawful. It would be that I'm so not able to do it that it would just be a crime if I even tried. That's how cool is that, guys? Because that means heaven is so much more cooler than you can possibly think or imagine. Heaven is God's dwelling place, right? That's the third heaven we talked about. We're going to get new bodies. So we talked about the judgment. There's the judgment of the unjust and the judgment of the just. If you have Jesus as your Lord and Savior and you've repented of your sins and received the forgiveness of sin, then you are justified by God. It's as though you didn't sin, okay? Obviously, we're still broken people. I get that. But it's different because Jesus paid for it. God himself paid for that. Okay, so there's two judgments. There's the great white throne judgment, which is for non-believers, and then there's what's called the bema seat of Christ, where we're judged according to our works, our good things. Ooh, that's kind of cool. That's our gold stars. We get gold stars, okay, not whips. So both groups, though, do get new bodies in the resurrection. The resurrection happens for everybody. Some get resurrected, as Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 says. Some will rise for everlasting contempt. Some will rise for everlasting life. I just have it there. Okay? So we get new bodies. How many people are excited for a new body? Yeah, those hands went up quick, guys. You're like, I just threw my shoulder out. That's how much I need a new body. Do we get new senses? New abilities? I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. I know that Jesus' body was able to, like, when he was resurrected, he was able to, like, he just, like, appeared. He, like, almost, I don't know, did he teleport? I mean, it's kind of cool. Like, he just appeared into a room, scared everybody. And he's like, hey, peace be to you. Jeez, dude. Use the door. Come on. Anyway, so, like, that kind of a thing, right? Do we get new bodies? I don't know. Do we get new senses? Have you ever thought about, and I think I've shared this before, like sight, right? The spectrum of light. For those that know science, the spectrum of light. You've got the spectrum. Well, on one side you have like ultraviolet, right? And then don't you have like what's the other one? Huh? Infrared. Thank you. Right? And all that we can see, the visible light for us as humans is like this sliver in the middle, right? You guys know this, right? And so therein lies all the colors that we know. I say that we know because that's what we can see. You don't know the colors you can't see. You see? So what if God, I'm just saying what if God took our spectrum and goes, new bodies? You can see it all. You're going to be doing this for about 100 years. What color is that? That's corpuscle. What's corpuscle? It's that. I've never heard of that. What's that one? You know, there'd be new names for things. It's kind of silly, right? But isn't there a beauty in that too, though? Like there's that childlike, in fact, like wow moments. Wow. It's just new colors. I would think there's going to be new colors. Maybe not. I don't know. What if he took your hearing? Some of us have lost some hearing. You ever do a hearing test? You're like, I just did one. And I lost like high-end hearing, which is typical, right? Like that's what starts to go. I'm like, well, that's fun. I can't get that back. You feel like I'm breaking, you know? Not only is God, it's not like God's going to just restore what was lost. That's good enough. I think there's going to be, like we're able to enjoy his presence in a whole new way, right? So like what if he took our hearing and all of a sudden we could hear like super low and super high? What if we could hear like magnitude of frequencies? Whoa! Like, what is that? That's a snail crawling out on the sidewalk, you know? And it's like, this is good. Or music. Oh man, you're just playing. Or you're in heaven and you plug in, you're rocking out, right? There's electric guitars in heaven. It's biblical. You know, right? You guys see the senses? What about taste? Oh, what if he just said, hey, I'm going to taste. You're eating all kinds of, you know? Oh, man, what? We don't have to worry about diets in heaven? What else does it talk about? We'll keep going about it. We should be excited about it, though, right? We should be excited about these things. It's okay to be excited about it. It's okay to smile about these things. This is why God came to earth, is because he wants you to be with him. He wants you to have that, not the punishment, to the point where he was willing to take the punishment for you. There's no more sin in heaven. That means you don't have to try to do the right thing anymore. You don't have to try to not do the wrong thing anymore. Your desires with the new body, you will only want to do what's right. Like that part of the whole battle is just here, that little time frame, right? Once we have the new body, we're raised from the dead. It's done. Like that's put away. There's no more battle for us. The battle is just here. So as much as the battle sucks here and is tough here, like hang in there. It's only for a season. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. No pun intended. And so there's no more sin there. No one's going to sin against you. No one's going to betray you. No one's going to hurt you with their words. No one's going to hurt you with their fists. No one's going to let you down. You're not going to let yourself down. There's no more sin. There's no more sorrow, the Bible says. It says there's no more sorrow. Because yeah, what's there to be sorry about? Everything's rolling, man. There's no more pain. Hallelujah. And that's not just physical. That's emotional, right? The Bible talks about God wiping away all of our tears. There's no more sorrow, no more pain. There's no more death. There's no more loss of loved ones. It's living with God and walking with Him, right? And each other. There's rewards and inheritance. Ephesians talks about this. Chapter 1 talks about inheritance. You can read those verses there. I encourage you to. It talks about the rewards that we receive as believers. These are the things that we do under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And when we step out as good kids, good God kids, we receive rewards for heaven. That's our judgment. Our judgment's not, what did you do wrong? Let's open all these books. No, we have a different book. If you look at the bottom point there, probably should put it up higher. We have what's called the Book of Life, or the Lamb's Book of Life. And that's the book that you need to be concerned with. Because if your name's not written in the Book of Life, then you are not heaven bound, you're hell bound. But if your name is in the Book of Life, you are heaven bound. You're in the club. You're on the list. You're on the VIP list. Is my name? Check it out. Yeah, it's there, right there. Come on in. Enter into your rest, right? This is a list. The Book of Life is a list of the saved people, right? And so we receive rewards at that point. And, we're enter in, and what are those rewards? I don't fully know. He doesn't say a whole lot of it. I just know they're coming. Jesus actually said, hey, I go and prepare a place for you. What's that like? What is the place that Jesus prepares for us? I don't know, but if God's making it, I bet you it's pretty cool. And he didn't say, I make a place, for you guys, and you guys are all sharing a room. I don't think that's what's going to be. I think it's like, hey, I got something special for you because I know you. I know what you like. I know how you're wired, and I want to bless you. It's not all about us in heaven. Okay, I get that. But and he's worthy. He's worthy. He's the only reason we can get there. But there's that connection. It's also called our rest. Michaela, you mentioned rest, one of the things about heaven. And heaven is called our rest. Rest from what? The battle. Guess what? There's no more 9 to 5. It's like permanent vacation. I don't know. Maybe he may have tasks for us to do. I don't know. But they would be a blessing too, right? And it's where God dwells amongst His people. Revelation, read the entire chapter of Revelation 20. Like, that's a really cool description of what it's going to be like. The new heaven, new earth. It's awesome. It talks about how God is the light. It's like there's not even a need for the sun and stars and the moon because God is the light. What? I don't even know what that's going to be like. Can you imagine just walking around with God? I have so many questions, right? And then, ironically, we'll probably get there and go, never mind, it doesn't matter. Because we're staring at all the colors. But that moment when Jesus says, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into your rest. Do I collapse? Do I run towards Him? That bear hug? Do I probably do something awkward? I'll probably go for the hug and he's trying to handshake and then you switch it, right? And I try to do the high five and he's pound. And I don't, he's just come in. It's fine. We'll talk later. We'll try it again later. Okay, thanks. What color is that? God's dwelling with us. There's just that connection. It's a restoration and upgrade even from the Garden of Eden, it seems. The Garden of Eden, they were walking around talking with God. But now, there's no propensity to sin. That's just removed because of what you did in that little thread. You said yes to Jesus. You said no to self. You said yes to Jesus. You turn from your sin. You turn to God. And you said, I trust you. I believe in you. I don't get it all. I know I don't have the answers. So yes to you, Jesus. Enter into your rest. Just a couple points, and then it looks like I've got a couple questions in there. I can't stress it enough, but you need to be heavenly minded. It's easy to be earthly minded. There's so much junk, right, guys? There is so much negativity and junk, distractions. Some of them are just life. Like, I got to go home and mow the lawn. Ugh. Some of you probably in here has to mow the lawn today. I just reminded you, and you're like, yeah. Tara's like this. She just visibly went, there's no lawn mowing in heaven. I think. If there is, it's easy. I'm not sure why I did that. It was pretty weird. So with all the junk, with all the bummers here and difficulties and sadness that happens, even in times of joy there can be sadness and all that stuff. Guys, it's easy for us to become so earthly minded, and we forget that there's more to life than this stuff and this junk and our pain and our downfalls, our disappointments and our fears and our failures and the uncertainties of the government and this and that and aliens like we talked about. All these things that we just get worried about. Guys, we need to be heavenly minded. Heaven's a real place. We need to be heavenly minded. Well, I don't want to be so heavenly minded. I'm no earthly good. I'm going to tell you this. You're no earthly good unless you have some heavenly mindedness. Okay? So be switched on. Be switched on. Keep that on the forefront of your mind, not the back of your mind, but heaven. Like, what are you doing? What are you living for? If you're going to work, why? Why are you going to work? Well, I need to provide. Well, why? Ask those questions why. Start to get into why you're doing what you do, because I want to glorify God. I want to provide a legacy for my family. I want to lead my family and champion that cause. I want to do good with the things that I have. I want to be a light to the world around me. I want to preach truth to the people that are lost. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere, baby. Being heavenly minded, redeeming the time. I like that, right? Right, guys? That's what a life worth living. Share the gospel then. Now you're switched on. Share the gospel. People perish every day. Every day, every second. As I've talked, thousands have died. They've breathed their last. People need to know the truth, and you've got the tool. You've got the key to everlasting life. Share it with your loved ones. Share it with your family. Share it with your neighbors. Share it with your coworkers. Amen.